Thank you, Rob. It's great to be here with you. I think really what we're doing now is we're looking at how you can have a systems approach to hydrogen, how we can look at the whole of the hydrogen system, taking it from being small scale individual projects to unlocking the real potential that hydrogen has to offer. But to do that, we need the infrastructure that allows us to particularly to drive down cost. And we won't really be able to achieve that until we're deploying projects at large scale. So as an example, which I'm sure we'll come back to during this webinar, at MorGen Energy, we're looking at a project in Denmark, in Esbjerg on the North Sea coast, for a 1 gigawatt green hydrogen project. The real benefit there is you're able to link North Sea offshore wind via pipelines into the industrial hubs in Germany. When we can get the investment to get to scale for this kind of cross-border infrastructure, you can really look at how you can decarbonize large off-takers, such as the steel and chemical refinery industries in Germany. To do this, you need the governments to commit to putting in that infrastructure, and they really can't do that until there are projects of the scale of the one we're talking about. When we focus on scale, what we're really looking at is how we can drive down the levelized cost of hydrogen. That's what's going to take hydrogen from being an important part of the decarbonisation strategy, but potentially a niche strategy, into one that can be deployed across the existing markets for hydrogen, but also open up other opportunities such as power, where we'll need dispatchable power in the future from low carbon molecules. To do that, we have to have an infrastructure that will allow us to deliver hydrogen at a low cost. And that's going to be critical. It's how we get that, drive down that cost. And some of the elements to the levelized cost of hydrogen that a customer will see are the transport and storage costs. You cannot justify those costs based on megawatt scale projects. We have to be at the hundreds of megawatts or gigawatt scale before we can get that investment. Alongside the need for the infrastructure, we also need to kickstart this industry. And we've seen great examples, and we'll come back to the HAR program, the Hydrogen Allocation Round within the UK, where we're seeing the subsidy schemes coming in to drive those initial, the initial rollout of projects. And you can kind of see it somewhat like a carrot and stick, where the carrot's the initial subsidy, which allows us, as I mentioned, to kickstart the industry. The stick comes later, where effectively you're looking at how you increase the price of the current fossil-based to end up where we move more towards cost parity. Because we do have to understand that the off-takers are going to be sensitive to the price of the feedstock that we're delivering, hydrogen in this case. And so we need a way to make it easy for them to make the transition. And we'll come back to talking about risk of making the change later on. But we also need to look at a way that we can reduce those subsidies over time to give value to taxpayers and energy consumers. So we need this combined approach of initial subsidy and then later on an increase in price by something like a CO2 taxation. These are models that have worked very well, for example, in wind, where we've gone from small megawatt deployments now to very large tens of megawatt wind turbines in gigawatt deployments. So there is a methodology there that's been shown to work within the energy sector, and that's one that we can anticipate we should follow with hydrogen. We've seen the initial strike prices, for example, for HAR1 being over £9 a kilogram on average. We know within the technology that we're going to have to do better than that. As a sector, we're going to have to work together and cooperate to drive down those costs. So what we need is the initial projects to show market confidence and then allow us to create the demand, which will allow us to really grow the critical mass, the infrastructure, the offtake, the technology learning, the supply chain, to be able to push to really be able to deploy hydrogen in a system level. If we can do this, we can really unlock the potential of Europe to allow us to take a lead in this space. But to do that, we need to move from an isolated projects to system thinking, have stable policy underlying that, and regional coordination.